Get it. Hey, how you
Hey, how are
doing?
you? Woo.
Good. I've been looking
Full
forward to.
honesty,
Yes.
I'm a little cranky today.
Okay. Cranky. Cranky. You want to go into it, or you just want to leave it at cranky? Because I was tired earlier. You saw the
Well, it is
energy.
the tired. Like I had one of those nights where I got woken up in the middle of the night last night
Mm.
and was up for like an hour and a half and all the tricks and tips didn't work and part of it was my sweet love was having a tough night. And so every time I'd just be about to get to sleep again, he'd be up doing so. I'm like, I'm about to take him out. 30 years of marriage is about to go out at 3 a.m. in the morning because like I so value my sleep.
I
And
love
I
mine.
I did rest this morning because
Good.
Wednesdays I try to be in balance and rest because we have a long day.
Yeah,
And
we
so I usually don't schedule a lot Wednesday mornings because of
yeah,
our work together. So I did get to rest, but you know how I love me my morning routine and all that was shot today.
yeah.
So
Because
just
even
one
when
of
you
those
rest,
days.
yeah, because even when you rest, it's like I didn't do the other non-negotiables, though. What about the other
Right.
stuff that keeps me in check? I
Right.
want you to know how happy I am that we got to talk about it, because I got to talk a little bit about mine and not talk about it because I wanted us to
Right.
be present, but I'm glad that we
Right.
put it on the table.
Well, what
What's
about you? Because how are you and what's going on with you?
Yeah, tired, tired. We're talking
Mhm.
about environmental wellness today, and we're talking about enneagrams, right? Human design and just operating from our strengths. And what this told me is that I shouldn't be doing as much as I am right now. So as I'm doing all this stuff, I'm trying not to think about it. I'm like, yep, this is what it was talking about. So trying to stay in balance and still working through the transition of getting back to work and what that means and something else supposed to be on the plate so that we can
Right.
continue to and it's the continuous transition and how do you stay quote unquote balanced like we talk about.
Right. And we talk about that and we talk about work life Jenga, right? I
Right.
was at physical therapy at 7 a.m. this morning,
Okay.
doing the cell
I
the
thought you said you got rest, Christine.
well, I came back and rested.
Okay.
But when you have those appointments, you gotta go or you
You
get that
do.
fee, right? And
Good
also it
job.
is part of self-care
Yes.
so I did an hour of physical therapy at 7 a.m.
Okay.
and they were of course they're just getting to know me because it's a new thing and so they were asking me about the work I do in the world, right? And they said, "Well, how many hours a day are you usually at the computer?" And I was like, oh, I'm embarrassed to tell you this because but lately between the conference, between all the events, way more than I should be, right? And
Say the
I
nu what's the number?
hesitated. Well, I hesitated when I told them and I said, look, I really believe in practicing what I preach, and I am out of balance at
Yeah.
this. And that's probably why I got a shoulder issue and I'm in physical therapy, just all, to be fair with all of it because of
Yeah.
how much computer time we've been doing lately.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I'm not going to give the number because it's not a
Okay.
healthy number.
I hear
Um,
you.
but should we do our official intro? And
Let's do it.
yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Hi, y'all. I'm Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur and Amazon bestselling publisher, author, and all natural product manufacturer. I'm a champion for your natural self-care, sustainable business care, and overall intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all, I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, Amazon best-selling author and publicist, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Together, we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the co-founders of the Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week with expert guests and have intentional conversations about how to be well in business and relationships and wellness. We like hearing folks' authentic stories and
Mm.
them sharing their resources with us. So we learn from each other every
Yeah.
time. which
There
is
we go.
why we're on episode 150.
Hey, welcome to episode 150, my friend.
It's a
How
big
do you
number.
how do you feel about it?
I'm just so proud of us
I'm
because
so proud of us.
what are the statistics now? We've mentioned them on the show before, but it's like the average podcast is 4 to 8
I don't even
episodes,
know if they gave the range. It was 4. That's what I think about. 4
right?
episodes. Yeah.
And because it's a lot of work and it's fun work and it's still a big lift sometimes. And
Yeah.
especially when we do it weekly and we do it live, which is
Mhm.
my favorite format.
Mhm.
I was talking to some friends yesterday out in the Pacific Northwest that want to start a podcast, and we were having a conversation. And it's still, when I talk about the podcast, when I talk about the work we do, it lights me up,
Me
right?
too.
It's
Yeah.
like, it's so yummy.
Mhm.
And I want to be authentic with folks and say, here's the statistic.
Yes.
And why is because it's not just this hour that we get to talk to each other,
Mm.
and that's the juicy part. And then there's all the before and after. And so the
Yeah.
details,
Yeah, it's running the business of it, and
right?
that's been one of my favorite things. I've been seeing the memories 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and it's like, wow, I wasn't doing any of this stuff I'm doing now. 4 years
Right?
ago, you know what I mean? And now we're Amazon bestsellers and publishers and started
Right?
volume 3 and just got off a conference, like you said, and um, talking to people around the world, in Germany, Egypt, and I'm just super excited for the impact that we've had. And like you said, I love talking about it. I'm at work, like, yeah, we talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness, and like this is what I like to talk about. So helping people
Right?
be well everywhere they are. Yeah.
Yeah. I was having some of those conversations at my doctor's appointment. It's time for the annual physical and you do all that. And
Yeah.
just really, I'm in that part right now because it's that time of year, which
Right.
sometimes we talk about it on the show and sometimes we don't. To me, it's like the adulting part of wellness, right?
Mhm.
And it's like when you go to PT or you go to the chiropractor or you go to do your, annual OBGYN, like all
Mhm.
those things,
Yes.
it's sometimes not fun and
Mm.
sometimes not sexy, but it's so important to our wellness, especially
Mhm.
as women, right? And
Yes.
just knowing how privileged I am to have access to that.
I
And
understand.
I wanted to say, because I know we're going to get into it here,
Yeah.
but I was thinking about it yesterday because yesterday was Super Tuesday in the States for voting, and
Super
here
Tuesday.
in Georgia, and we haven't really talked about it a lot because you and I have
Okay.
been dancing so fast,
Tell
but
me more.
early voting ends on Friday here in Georgia, and this is for the presidential primary.
Wow.
So you want to go?
Thank you.
Well, you can wait and vote, on the
But it's
Tuesday, which is
early.
the
Yeah.
next Tuesday. But early voting ends this Friday. So I
Okay.
wanted to tell our listeners, if you're listening in Georgia, and check out, because different people have different dates for their primaries in the states, and there's different strategies and different ways, so you might want to do some research before you go, depending on
Mhm.
your beliefs. But
Mhm.
I was just thinking about that. I was thinking about it on Super Tuesday, and I was like, oh, we really haven't talked much about that.
Mm-mm.
And I think part of it is, I don't know about you, but just everything is there's so much right now, but we always try to bring that up
Mm.
and to encourage people, and especially women, to use your voice, know
Right.
what is happening, know
Yeah.
why it's happening. We've got a
Yeah.
lot of big stuff in the news.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things in the states right now that are on the ballot in regards to women's rights. And so check that out ahead of time and pay attention,
I like
because we got some big stuff going on.
it's
I don't know
important.
if you saw about in one of the states where they took away the right for IVF and in
No.
vitro fertilization. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, they did.
Wow.
Because they said that frozen embryos had more rights than the woman. And so it was one of our southern states. And so women in that state can no longer access IVF at this moment. And there are other states across the nation that are trying to do that. So it's important that we're paying attention because they're
It
making
is.
laws and legislations that affect us. And so
Yeah.
it's, and not to tell you what to believe or how to vote, just
Right.
know that you
Know
want to
what's going on.
look,
Mhm.
and pay attention, and because these elections do matter. And
Right.
we're seeing that. We're seeing that in a big way here in the United States right now. So,
Absolutely. And I love a good planner, and I talk about it in our book that just came out, the conference we just had not
mhm.
last weekend, but the weekend before. I think about writing it out in the planner. That's really what I want to
Oh,
do. Have a calendar with birthdays and election dates. So you just
right?
know what's coming up. Yeah.
Schedule it. It's
Yeah.
important. And some people think it's not important, right? Because they're like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't have a choice on who's on the ballot. Because sometimes it kind of feels that way. But there are different strategies for how you vote, even against or for the lead candidates that
Mhm.
let the primary. So, what the primary is for in the United States is to let the candidates know where you stand. Are you going to support them or are you not? Right.
Mhm.
So one strategy that's going around is if you don't currently agree with President Biden, but you generally vote Democratic, is
Mhm.
to vote when you go into the primary to vote uncommitted, right?
Mhm.
Or to vote for one of the other people. If
Mhm.
you are on voting Republican, you can go in, and if you don't agree with Trump, you can vote for Nikki Haley, who just suspended her campaign yesterday, but is probably
Okay.
still on the ballot,
Okay.
or you can vote undecided. You
Mhm.
can also get an independent ballot. Now, the thing that a lot of people don't understand is in the primary, in this current election, you get to choose whichever side you vote for. And you don't have to vote for that side come November. So, say you wanted to make a choice in, like, you wanted to have an impact on who was on the ballot for the Republican side, you could vote in the Republican primary.
Mhm.
Now, know that that also means you're then on their fundraising campaign. Just
Mhm. Mhm.
know the consequences if you go that route. Same thing as if you're a Republican voting for a Democrat.
Right.
So there's different ways, and get on the internet, research it, pay attention. But the thing is be involved and be active because your
Mhm.
voice does count,
It
and they
does.
are paying attention to these numbers, right?
Mhm.
And so I think it's important, and
Absolutely.
especially this year. So
Absolutely. Thank
yeah,
you so much for that because I've
you're
been thinking
welcome.
about it. I was doing research on the candidates. I got tired of getting to the polls and realizing how much research I hadn't done.
Yeah.
So again, over the past 3 years, we've been talking more. That's been my goal to make sure I go in knowing who's going to be there and what they stand for.
Well, and like today, we're talking about environmental wellness. So
Yes, we
that's the other thing is you can look up where your candidates stand
Mhm.
on your community, on the big environmental issues, on all of that.
Yes.
Marianne Williamson is on the ballot in the
Mhm.
United States, which
Mhm.
I mean, there's just so many things to pay attention to, right? The other
Yeah.
thing I will say in Georgia for our local folks is you can go and it will show you the ballot ahead of time, and most states do this. It'll show you who's on there so you're not surprised when you get in there. Now, the other thing that a lot of folks need to know, especially our younger demographic, is you cannot use your phone when you're in the voting ballot. So
Right.
if you're nervous about not remembering what you want to, what, who,
Whose
whatever,
name? It's a
you
thing.
can take it, you could write it on a piece of paper
Okay.
and write how you can take a piece of paper in, but you
Okay.
cannot take your phone in. And that I got busted on that recently. Not because I was doing something and I had my phone out. And y'all know
She's
how
got her
attached I
phone.
am. You know
Yeah.
how attached I am to their phone. They're like, ma'am, ma'am. And I'm like, sorry. Uh, that was on a local election that had there were a lot of stuff going on. And
Yeah.
but I was like, oh, yeah. So
Right.
it happens to all of us. And,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to give that heads up that
Mm.
if you're worried about your memory, you can take in a piece of paper. So,
That's important. That's important because
yeah.
I wondered about it during the school board election last year
That's the
with
one
that
I
one
was writing
people.
down. Like some of
Yes.
those that I'm not as it was like, oh, what was
Mhm.
that? Who was,
Mhm.
you know?
Because Shivi's name was not on there, and I said, "Why did I put Shivi? That's his Instagram name." But it was on his yard signs, and he got elected first teacher in 150 years. So
Right.
we did what we needed to
Well
do. Yes.
done. Well
Yes.
done. All right.
So
Should I give our definition of environmental wellness as
yeah,
we
let's
talk about this? I know we kind of took a left turn, but it was really on my mind and with what's going on. So, folks, today we're talking about environmental wellness. Environmental wellness is supporting your good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that enhance well being. It promotes interaction with nature and also creating enjoyable personal environments, both in and out of your workspace. That includes knowing the types of environments that you thrive in and having an intentional relationship with these places, including the earth. Whew.
Right.
I
Well,
know we love it because we talk about it all the time, but the one that jumped really out at me today,
okay.
especially because of our guest, is knowing the types of environments you thrive in,
I'm right there with you.
right?
Yeah. Are you okay if I go ahead and read her bio so we
Yes,
can
please. Let's get her up here because I'm so excited to have this
I'm
conversation.
like, our time is ticking away. We have to
Ah,
go,
bring
right?
her,
Okay.
bring
Okay. So, as today we have an amazing guest. Catherine Bell is a successful entrepreneur, business leader, and best-selling business author. Catherine helps organizations create healthy corporate cultures. Author of The Awakened Company, Catherine's revolutionary business book was awarded the Nautilus Book Awards in Business and Leadership, was a bestseller 1 week after its release, a bestseller on Amazon, chosen as eight of the best leadership books of 2015, and recognized as a top book combining business and mindfulness. Catherine has been published in Fortune, HBR, Profit, Conscious Company Magazine, Women of Influence, and has written for the UN. She has worked around the globe from the UK to Cuba and with Fortune 500 companies to serial entrepreneurs. Catherine has an MBA from the Smith School of Business at Queen's University, a sociology degree from Western University, is certified in the Enneagram, and is a yoga instructor. She recently just stepped down from her role as, I might get this wrong, Jaroslawski, I see you, I said it right and then said it wrong. Jaroslawski Co-Fellow at the Haskane School of Business at the University of Clargy. Catherine has recently co-founded a mindfulness app, Awakenly, which uses the
her.
Enneagram to ground people into their presence and transform their realities. Help us welcome to the stage, Catherine Bell. Hi, Catherine.
Hello.
How are
Oh
you?
my gosh. I am so excited that you're here with us.
Me too.
Oh, well, it's such an honor and privilege and pleasure to be with the two of you. And I just want to really echo and reverberate what the two of you were just speaking of. Please vote on
Mhm.
behalf of the universe, on behalf of the planet. Please vote. Make your informed decision. We need your vote. So
Yeah,
Love it.
um, I just really want to echo that
Thank you.
the importance of it.
right. And that's from our neighbor to the north because you're coming from Calgary, right?
I am your neighbor from the north, and to just kind of give a shout out to America, we need our family in the south, and we wouldn't be who we are in the north without America. And
Mm,
I'm
Right.
it's that's the reality of it and the truth of it,
mm,
Mm,
and how we're so interconnected, and
yes.
we're partners in so many ways. So
yeah.
you know the highest wishes and hopes for America, because it affects everybody.
Right.
And
Yes.
That's some
that,
truth. Hey, Catherine, I opened my phone because, we did our coffee and chat, but at the time, I don't know why I didn't download the app. But if
Mm.
I am in the App Store, tell me what I'm looking for. Awakenly?
Awakenly. So it's Awakenly, and it's in the Apple App Store.
Okay.
And you'll first identify what is your Enneagram type. And then every day you'll get daily whispers according to your Enneagram type. You'll get
Mm,
morning mantras, which is to set positive intention. And then you can check on your centers in terms of where your gut is, where your heart is, and where your head is. So it's literally a wellness, an internal, external wellness check every single day.
I love
Oh,
that.
that's beautiful. And what does it look like your little logo, so I know that I'm in the right place?
Well, first of all, the logo is a very similar color to your colors. It's purple.
Okay.
Mm,
Okay.
Love the color purple, and it's got like a little eye on it. And that was
Mm,
actually symbolically to mean wholeness. And it's also,
okay.
it has many, many symbolic meanings. But really, it's to invite people into finding their inner muse, their inner well being, their inner wisdom, so that people can serve humanity at this time. It's a reminder to tell people, you know, you're good, you're amazing, and bring that out, bring that to life.
Mm,
Because did you know, here's a statistic that I have found so helpful. We have about 60,000 thoughts a day.
Wow.
85% are repeating. Guess how many are negative?
How many?
mm.
95%.
30%?
95,
95%?
95%,
Not over
Shannon.
here, baby.
Right?
Wow, that's a crazy percentage. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, and so, like, what the two of you are doing with this, with what you're building, the books that you've built, your podcast, it's setting this positive intention in motion.
Mhm.
Yes.
And that is what is so needed right now, because there's a default. We have a negative default and a negative
Mhm.
wiring, and the invitation is, how do we bring that positive intention, positive meaning into our head center, our heart center, and then act from that place.
Yes.
Right.
It's so important, you know? What are you gonna
And the
say, Christine?
work, I was just thinking about the work you do with the Enneagram. I'm
Yes.
so
Mm,
fascinated. Like I know just enough about the surface, right? And I haven't taken a deep dive, and I have some dear friends who have taken a deep dive. But I
mm.
think about this when you say about acting from your head and your heart, like
Mhm.
basically your whole being. Will you tell folks what the Enneagram is and how you use it in your work in the world?
Yes. So the Enneagram, great question, Christine. So the Enneagram is really a roadmap for how can we be more present. So
Mm.
often it's said, you know, leaders capture people's heads, hearts, and hands being action. Well, how do we actually become present? This is what the Enneagram teaches us. So it's 9, what I would call defaults for automaticity, for how we can come from automatic versus coming from presence. However, we all need to understand what is our actual lens that we're bringing to the party, so that we can serve the high side of that lens, but also know that there's 8 other lenses that we can also see the world from. So we can be more present, so that we don't come from automatic, so that we come from something divinely inspired, because it's more holistic. So the root of the Enneagram is really to teach us to be present as leaders. And it actually was the architecture of my entire book, The Awakened Company, which was published by Namaste, because they thought it represented the consciousness of the time, who's Eckhart Tolle's publisher. The
Mm.
actual backbone of it is the Enneagram. It's the wisdom tradition that has held it together. Because keep in mind, as you said, it was published in 2015,
Yes.
re-released by Namaste in 2023.
Mm.
Most business books last 6 months. So the invitation,
Congratulations.
thanks. Thank you,
You're
thank
welcome.
you. Thank you, thank you. And it you know, I do want to say something also, how important it is that we honor community. Because anytime we birth a book, anytime we birth a podcast, anytime we birth something new, it's always done by amazing people. And there was an amazing team at Namaste. Uh, Russ Hudson, who's an Enneagram thought leader, helped me with the book, Chris Papadopoulos, as well as people like Otto Scharmer from MIT, Dr. Julian Barling from Queen's University. Like, there's a whole community in creating a book. And
Yes.
so right now, I think a new form of leadership is being asked for leaders to step up, in terms of, we're all leaders. We are all leaders. So with
Yes.
the Awakened Company, that's what it's about, is creating holistic beings, holistic relationships, and holistic communities,
Mhm.
so that we can all thrive. We can all thrive. And it's a different layer of thinking, because often, as I said earlier, we're coming from default.
So powerful. So when you speak to, let's talk about the work environment, right? Because we're talking about knowing your secret leadership key through the Enneagram. And when I think about that, I think about the whole team. So some teams in the hierarchy, you might not be the person at the very top. when this person that's not at the very top feels like they're not a leader, what would be the first thing that you would say to them to help them with that paradigm shift of seeing how they manage their life and themselves?
What a fabulous question, Shannon. First of all, I would say we talked about thoughts. Know that your thoughts matter. Also, know that you matter and that you belong. And one of the most powerful things everybody can do is have a personal intention or a personal purpose, and then to live from that place. I also believe that everybody actually is a leader. And I
Yeah.
think that paradigm of hierarchy has
Mhm,
got to go. And
mhm.
here's why. Research was done. One group of people were labeled. I weave business research into everything I do. One group of people in a boardroom were labeled um, followers. Another group in a boardroom were later labeled leaders. They pretended there was an emergency. The followers did nothing. Like, they did not behave according to leadership, but the leaders did something. So our labels stick. We need to take the post-it notes off. And for that person who believes they are not a leader, they are a leader. And
Yes.
for us to embody it by purpose.
I I love
Mm.
that you brought that back. I remember you talking about it during your our coffee and chat, our initial conversation. And this, I was telling Christine last year, I was doing this keynote speech at the high school. And, as a speaker, I'm giving myself my points. I tried to talk about all 8 dimensions. It's too much information for like less than an hour, right? So I'm trying to wrap it up. I knew the bell was about to ring, and I'm telling them, you are the managers, you are the leaders that you're looking for, right? And I said, ooh, I just sent all these high schoolers back to their classroom, and they're like, I am the leader, which is how they are, right? And it's important for them to feel. But if it's not supported, and sometimes it's the gap in the information and the paradigm shift, right? I wondered how that translated, but it's true. It was necessary to tell them. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We do. I was thinking about you saying about it being embodied, right? In interplay, one of the modalities I teach, we have a game that we play about following and leading. And it's always fascinating, right? Because everybody gets to play different parts. And really, for people checking in with themselves about where they're comfortable, that they're both, that we all need to be in an interdependent society, following and leading, right? And we need to have the skills to be able to do both. But I think really feeling it in your body and knowing, oh, I like to lead, or whoo, sometimes I like to rest and follow, but I may not like to follow the same people. Like, all that, like, to really experiencing that in your body when it's a low stakes, when you can just play and really notice, has been a joy to me to know that, yeah, I can do both. I can do both really well.
Yeah.
And there's different times for different ways that I do it.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, Catherine, when you talk about your secret leadership key through Enneagram, is it knowing your Enneagram type? Is it using it a certain way? Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yes. So, what the business research shows is the more self aware we are as leaders, the higher performing we are. And HBR just did a study, and less than 10% of people are self aware. So, how
Wow.
do we become? So, what does that say about leadership,
Did
right?
you just say
So,
10%? Less
Less
than
than.
yeah,
10%?
yes.
What?
Well, as
What?
10 to 15%, but I'd say it's probably even not lower. So, okay, right? So we know this. We know this now, Christine and Shannon. So what do we
Yes.
do?
Right.
One way to become self-aware is to know your Enneagram type. So it is literally a key to unlocking your leadership style. Because when you know your Enneagram type, you also know that there's other ways of perceiving the world. And by unlocking that, then it's like all of a sudden your vision becomes a 360 perspective
Right.
versus locked in on your type, locked in on your personality. And then you weave that in with mindfulness, with taking a breath, taking a pause. I invite everyone just to take a pause, relax your shoulders, and invitation to practice that throughout your day, to be this beer and doer, the dance of the being and doing. And when we come from that more aligned space with the being and being in action with a fully embodied gut, heart, and head. So the gut types in the Enneagram are the 8, 9, and 1. And they're about movement, action, inaction. The heart, 2, 3, 4, and they're concerned about feeling and image. The head, 5, 6, 7, and they're concerned about thought, maybe a little anxious. So, and to know that we all have different modes, and how do we tap in and become self-aware to know where we're coming from, so that we can come from this more awakened place, so that we can be of service to society and humanity at this very poignant time.
Absolutely. I love that. And you saying self-aware reminds me of a conversation I just had with one of my leaders in this new position. And we were talking about positive feedback. And he said, they're saying all this great stuff. I'm like, okay, who's saying what? Right. He's like, oh no, it's okay. I brought you here for a reason. You're amazing. And I left like, am I seeking validation? Is it this? Is it that? I said no. So, oh yeah, I need the sandwich method. I need the positive reinforcement and let's say the positive feedback, because you're going to tell me when I need to work on something, right? We're going to have to talk about the opportunities and all this different stuff. But if it's only that, talking about environmental wellness, that's not going to work for me. You know what I mean? And not in oh, I just don't like it, but it's not going to help me be at my optimal level for a day or sustainably, over time.
Mm.
And so I
Well,
knew to communicate that, and that it wasn't just me being, coming from a personal place. Like I knew that about myself.
mm,
What were you going to say?
well, I just think it's so, we think we're isolated and everything is done in relationship. And we actually, Shannon, we all have emotional bank accounts. We
Mhm.
need to say 5 times as many positive things to each other as
Mm,
every one withdrawal.
mm,
So, and by reinforcing people, in catching people in the act of doing it right, they want to do it more.
yes.
And yet, because I think of this negative bias in terms of our thought pattern, it's like, Shannon, you rocked it. Like, I listened to you do that introduction, and it was so soulful and so smooth and so eloquent. And like, how do we catch each other in the act of greatness? And
Yes.
that's what we need in our relationships, and to recognize that everything is a relationship.
Hmm. Hmm.
Everything.
And Christine, you were talking about that. I think that might, and it's up to you what you want to write about, but you could definitely write about that for volume 3, because I think you
Yeah,
said that last week.
I always say that. Like that
Yeah.
is one of my core beliefs is that
Hmm.
everything comes down to relationship.
It
Our
is.
relationships with ourselves and each other. And Catherine, I'm still stuck on that. And
10%.
I guess it's because of the people I hang out with, right? But that 10%, only 10% of people are self-aware. That is a shock to me. And I think about, so I know the Enneagram is one tool, right? We have many tools that we can use, but I want to be able to ask you some questions around it and have this, because we were having this really juicy conversation before we came on about our different Enneagram types. So will you tell people your type? Well, first of all, I think our listeners may want to know, how do you find out your Enneagram type? So we'll
Mm.
start with that.
Mm. So you can go to Awakenly and find your Enneagram type. You can also go to the Ready, which is the Riso Hudson Enneagram Type Indicator, and you will get a full report. Let me just give a brief synopsis. Let's dance around the wheel so that people have a sense of what we're talking about before we talk about our individual types, because I think they need to have a flavor and understand the different prisms. So first is, we start with the 8, which is the challenger. And Shannon, you just saw Shannon do a little dance, and she can say why in a bit.
Yeah.
So the 8's a challenger, and this is a sense of initiatory energy. Wonder Woman energy, you might say. Look at that cup. It's the red energy. It's the ignition on the car. It's the start me up. Let's get things happening. Now, sometimes I am an 8, full disclosure, a challenger, and I'm not an 8. Everybody is and isn't their type. So I also want to make that very, very clear. So as this, I can sometimes hide my vulnerable heart. I'm very protective of people who are my friends and close to me. So the 8 is the startup, protect the heart, go forward energy, quite an assertive energy. So the next, so 8 is gut too. 9 is gut. So we'll go to the 9 next, and that's the peacemaker. And these are the people who want to keep things really flowing and just like, let's just have a good talk. Don't put too much energy into anything. Let's just float down the Nile together. And please keep it just peaceful, 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 peaceful. And yet at the same time, what they're doing with their energy is they're pushing their anger down because they're always trying to hold the peace. It's an incredibly creative type, this peacemaking type. So that is the 9. You can see why the 8 and the 9, radically different energies. 8's like, start me up, and 9's like, keep me peaceful. Very different, very different. And then there's the 1. So 8, 9, and 1 are body types. And the 1 is the reformer. And the reformer is the red penners. They're the people who intuitively know what's wrong on a document, for example. They're the people who want to keep the line of integrity. They're the people who, there's really, they're always looking for perfect. And is there such a thing as perfection?
No, no.
So that's the 1. So those 3 are our body types. Now let's move into the heart types. So the heart, the 2, 3, 4, the feeling. Now, Christine, well, I shouldn't out Christine. It's
Everybody that knows me knows. It's okay, Catherine.
Okay.
It's pretty easy. It was 7 points ahead of my second type. So I definitely lead with the helper.
So the helper, they're the people who are like, what do you need? What do you need? How can I help you? How can I be of service? And everything is a relationship to the 2, like in literally, everything's about the connection. However, the thing that the 2 has to watch about is make sure you don't give to get. Sometimes can be a little bit manipulative is the kind of the thing to work on with the 2. Then there's yeah, go ahead, Christine.
I was just going to also say the emotions, because like not only am I 2 and a helper, but I'm like triple Cancer. So like you put those 2 together, like, whoo, it's squishy and emotional, and that heart piece is like,
oh, and Christine, you're raising something super, super important. I love that you're weaving in different methodologies for self-awareness. And I think that that's an invitation to become more self-aware. Bring in astrology, bring in different wisdom lessons so that we can become more aware. I think it's super, super important what you just said. So now there's the 3, which is the achiever, which is like, I want to get gold. I always want to get gold. I'll do anything to get gold. However, they can sometimes lose connection with their heart. If we were to look at a heart, the 2 would be the front side of the heart, the 3 would be the middle of the heart, and the 4 would be the back side of the heart. So the 3 is like, give me the gold. I want to really show up and be successful, really good with process and making things happen to achieve the goal. Very goal-oriented, very assertive type as well. Then there's the 4, who's Don Riso, who wrote Wisdom of the Enneagram, and things are not pretty enough in my room. They need to be more beautiful. They need to maybe, have a bigger piece of flowers back there. They need to be more beautiful. And I'm an individual, so there's nobody quite like me. They're the...
I love the way you embody that, because I just saw several of my friends' faces pop in front of my head, and I was like, oh, I do know their Enneagram. Okay.
Right? And they tend to be very self-referencing. They have this inner reservoir of feelings. And introverted and intuitive would be another way to describe them. So that's the 2, 3, 4. So we've gone through the body center, the heart center. Now we're going to the head center. And the head center is, tell me what you're thinking. Whereas the heart centers, tell me what you're feeling. Head centers, tell me what you're thinking. 5 is the observer, and they're like the intense cerebral type, like Stephen Hawking, like study. I'm going to go into details around Albert Einstein. I'm going to go into details around this. There was a leader I was working with, and you walked in and there was just a wall of books because he didn't want any personal contact. He just wanted to address people from the head center. So he made one resolution to make one luncheon and one personal disclosure at lunch. So this is like, the 5 is like the intellectual, the stereotypical intellectual. So the observer or investigator would be, they've got a piercing quality to them. Very, very bright, can see systems and patterns quite easily. Then there's the 6, which is the loyalist. And these are people who love structure, who
Mhm.
want to feel supported, super funny, super self-deprecating. And I'm not happy unless I have a worry list. I need a worry list.
Mm.
If I don't have a worry list, I'm not happy. So it's like they're great at off ramps and seeing what could go wrong. I often think if there was more 6 energy in the world when the pandemic came, they would have been prepared. Like they are super preparers. I don't want to say super preppers, but there's a kind of like, that energy of this could go wrong and I figure out how to do it.
It makes sense that that was like one of my bottom scores.
There you go. And why does it make sense, Christine? Why does it make sense?
Because I am more of a in the moment, and I have a little bit of prepping, and I come from a family of worriers. So I'm used to that energy, and I've consciously chosen to employ different strategies and different things in my life. So it's very interesting to me that that was one of the least, and I don't even like that language about it being least, but it was on the bottom of the list of where I resonated with.
The percentages on your Enneagram, yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's a good way to say it, Shannon. Thank
I
you.
got you, of course.
Well, and what you've just pointed to is very, very, what you both pointed to is very important because we all have our Enneagram DNA. So we all have different amounts of each type. And what do we need to be more present? So, for example, for me, one of the things I've been working on is being, well, let me finish the types and then let's circle back to that. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah. So the next type is the 7, and the
Yes.
7 is like bright colored. Let's do lots of fun things. And even if things are negative, they flip it around and make it positive. Excellent, excellent, excellent brainstormers. Um, they're kind of the way they make things positive. It's often to hide something that's going on emotionally, so need to be aware of that, and also to bring projects to completion because they have so many ideas that it can be challenging to complete. So the 7 is called the enthusiast, and I call them like the Pied Pipers. Everyone kind of wants to follow them because they're so joyful and so bright and so energetic, really. So the invitation is to find out your Enneagram type, find out your Enneagram DNA, and then drop into presence and see what is most needed in terms of this ancient wisdom map, this ancient process map as to how to be more present. And I just want to give a big shout out to a woman named Dr. Deborah Egerton. Her book was just released yesterday. It's called The Enneagram Made Easy. And
Mm,
she's one of my dear friends. And her book dropped yesterday.
congratulations. We love celebrating publication dates, right? So that's huge and super excited for her.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Me too. Super, super excited for her. I'm hosting a free book party, book launch celebration for her. Her birthday is March 15th. So join
Oh,
us. It's
happy
on
early
Awaken
birthday.
Company. I
Yes.
know. I know. I'm going to tell her that I wasn't planning to do this, but I feel like it's really important to
Yeah.
acknowledge community, to build each other up because it's the only way. We've got to organize differently. We've got to work differently. And I believe that the only way is to bring humanity back into what we're doing. That
Hmm.
we're not isolated beings. We're in this together. And knowing our Enneagram types and our Enneagram predispositions can help us
Yeah.
to make more discerned choices.
Thank you for that.
Mm.
So you stopped yourself from going off track. You did a great job on staying on the 9 types, right? So do you remember what you were going to go more into detail with after you went through the 3 different sections of the Enneagram?
Yes, I do. So the Enneagram is broken up into triadics. And one of the triadics is, are you emotionally real? Are you positive outlook or are you competency?
Okay.
Okay, so the emotionally real is the 4, 6, and 8. The positive outlook is the 2, 7, and 9. And the competency is the 1, 3, 5. So let's say we have a 2 and an 8 working together. And
Yeah.
in my business, we have a 8 and a 9 working together. So it's positive outlook and emotionally real. What is needed in the relationship is actually the third force, which
Mhm.
is competency, which is list making, which is going through process, which is making things okay. We have a problem. We can be positive, we can be real, and let's make a list. So this can be very, very helpful in terms of how we work together. And I work with business teams a lot on this. If we
Mm.
have different leaders, let's say we have an 8 leader and a 2 leader. Okay, well, what's the missing ingredient here to reconcile, to bring you together, to be fully empowered in this relationship? So,
Tell us. Tell us.
well, it's for example, with the 2 and the 8, the 2 is so positive and relationship based, and the 8 has this energy to make things happen. Okay, well, how are we going to do it?
Mhm.
And that is the 1, 3, 5. So looking at the 3 are, what are our goals? What do we want to achieve? The 5 is sitting back and investigating what we're creating together, and the 1 is getting the details right. So it's interesting when we look at it, because we all, in relationship, we have one thing that's being invited to the party. And in the case of the 2 and the 8, the thing that's being invited to the party is the also the recognition of that's an incredible combination. First and foremost, incredible combination, incredible things can be manifested through the 2 and the 8 coming together. And next level is get these lists, get this investigation,
Mhm.
get all the details, because that's not the natural MO
Mhm.
of the 2 or the 8.
The details. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about the wings? Right. So I'm an 8. We talked about Christine being a 2, and you were sharing with us that the wings are the not the arrows that it points to, right? But the Enneagrams to the either left or right hand side. So I feel like I heard myself when you were talking about the 7 and the 9. Can you speak to what that means?
Mm-hmm. What a great question. The Enneagram is a circle, and every type has 2 types beside it. And
Right.
we're not just the single point. Like, so I'm not just wholly an 8. I'm modified by either the 7 or the 9. And in my case, I'm an 8 with a wing of 7, whereas the 9 will be more peaceful, more harmony, whereas I'm like, let's get the energy up, let's get the energy going, let's make something happen. So it modifies the taste, the flavor, the sight of the actual Enneagram type. So that it's important to understand where we lie in between those points, so that we can have a more clear dimension, or more clear awareness of who and what we are and what our default is.
Mhm. I love it. I feel like we need at least one more podcast to continue to dive into the great conversations that we have when we talk to you, Catherine. But I have one more question for you before we go to our wisdom in action. When you work with corporate teams, what do you feel like is the biggest challenge that you see from the automation that you talked about, right? And the system to the people centered way of thinking about it?
Mm. So, amazing question,
Thank you.
Shannon. Often CEOs will say to me, Kath, can you take me from 0 to $1 billion like you did that last company? And that's the wrong mantra.
Mm,
And it's not because they're bad people.
right.
It's because they don't know. So, where alchemy actually exists is when we focus 2/3 on corporate culture, 1/3 on financial success, where we focus on how are we going to actually solve either a human or planetary challenge. And then, when coming from that place, that is how we create amazing awakening organizations. Yet, too much focus on the bottom line invitation focus on let's solve some problems together and have some fun and bring humanity back.
I love it. So
Mm.
1/3 on financial, 2/3 on company culture. And would you say it's more like 90% on finance and maybe 10% on the other that you usually see walking in the door? What would you say the percentage is?
Oh, great.
I know I said one
I
question, but
I would say about 80-20.
okay.
And if we want to go even deeper, I would almost say that corporate cultures like the empowered feminine and financials is the empowered masculine. We need both. That's where the magic is it's in the and, it's in the both. It's the least performing organizations are those that focus solely on finances alone. The middle is culture. We need both. It's an
Mhm.
and conversation.
I love
It's
that.
about wholeness,
Exactly.
right?
Mhm,
Mhm.
mhm,
Beautiful.
mhm.
This is
So
so
good.
good,
Do you
right?
have
I'm like, what? We're almost out of time. I'm with you, Shannon. I'm like, we got to get Catherine back on the show. Like, I have so many more things we could talk about.
Yes. Yes. So this week we're talking about environmental wellness, right, Catherine? What are you doing for yourself personally to be intentional?
I have a pattern of giving my energy away. And I am really looking at why that is and the importance of self care, and also giving my energy away in terms of my voice. So, even being on this podcast and saying, I'm going to raise my voice, it's time for me to come out of the closet. It's time for us, all of us I've kind of been, had the sheets up.
I was going to ask you. Okay.
The sheets have been up, the sheets are coming down. And part of it
Mm.
is with radical self-care, self-love, so that I really can be of service. And part of the self-love is taking the risk and speaking experiences. So I
Mm.
really appreciate that question. It's a
Absolutely.
very vulnerable question for me. Very vulnerable.
I hear you. And welcome to
Right.
the other side of the sheets.
Mm.
Pulling the sheets down. Welcome. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Christine, what
Shannon, what are
about you?
you? Oh,
I'll
I
go
was going to have
next.
you go first. Yeah, you go first.
I will go next. I think it's the same thing, is similar, just continuing to use my voice. Even sometimes like we were talking about with voting, you might feel like it's not heard. You might feel like these I'm tired of,
Mhm.
especially like you said, as an 8, you go back and forth from this huge heart to not wanting to, it's okay. Let them have whatever they want to have, in their life, but continuing to use my voice.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing in my environments this week.
Mm. I think I have two. I am definitely going to say hashtag use your voice and vote.
Mhm, mhm.
And I think my other one is to stay grounded. I
Oh,
have
wow.
big things going on. I have big events this week, and I've
Yes.
been in the midst of this. This has been a really busy season. And so I have the upcoming International Interplay Leaders Gathering that I'm one of the
Ooh,
co leaders on. So it's 4 days, which is awesome. It's wonderful, and it's a lot. So,
yeah,
like, staying present, staying grounded um, will help me with my whole environment. And also just something practical is I may bring flowers into my office because I'm going to be in
mhm.
here for, I've been in here for weeks and I'm like, oh, looked around and was like, I don't have fresh flowers in my office.
That's a great
So,
idea.
yeah, I know you're really good at that, Shannon. Like you
Thank you.
usually have that going on, especially when we have a big event. And so
Mhm.
I'm gonna take my cues from you there. So,
I receive that.
mm.
I receive it. Okay, Catherine, so if our listeners would like to work with you, what's the best way for them to get in contact?
Well, first of all, I'm launching my first ever certification starting
Ooh,
in September.
okay.
So join the Awaken Company certification. There's an application form online, awakencompany.com. So go to our website. You can also see our upcoming events there as well. And you can find us on social, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Join us. In particular, join the certification because it is going to be incredible. And it's like I finally have the confidence to do it. Even though I've been teaching this in top business schools, it's
Mhm.
time. It's just time. So please join us.
It's gonna
Please
be
enjoy it.
amazing.
Mm, that is so
Mhm.
exciting. Congrats.
I'm
We
excited
know
too.
how much work stuff like that is. So, congrats. And we will put that in our show notes so people can get connected to you in all the ways. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you both for being such
Yeah.
forces for good. So
Thank
We
you.
are
thank
so
you.
grateful to be
Welcome.
connected. Thank
Yes.
you, Catherine.
Talk to you soon.
Oh, I think she's one that we may need to book again, like
Yeah, I'm
right away.
serious.
No, me too. We rarely do that. Catherine's in the green room. So
Uh,
you know, Catherine, it is rare that we come off and are like, oh, we've honestly only had one other guest in 150 episodes that we're like, let's rebook immediately. But I think you are just there, Catherine, because I'm
yeah.
like, oh, what? I looked down and I was like, 50 minutes went by.
Already. Right. And this is what I love about it. I love the women we talk to. I love the
Right?
resources and the stories. And I do want to uplift her because I was thinking about environmental wellness and how many people I've been talking to about heart math and Lori Ives' work that she's certified in.
Right?
And it's so important to keep myself centered, incoherent, to just take a deep breath for a second.
Right. Well, and the fact that Catherine's doing that with leadership. And I mean, could
Mhm.
you imagine?
I can.
I'm still
What were you going to
stuck
say?
on that dang
The
statistic about
10%?
10%,
Come
because
on, Christine.
that's not the world we live
That
in a lot
you
of
and
the
I
time.
live you talking about the
Right.
people that
Because
you and I keep around ourselves?
right. Like
Mhm,
it's and so I knew it was low, but that
mhm,
is incredibly low and
mhm,
makes sense for a
mhm.
lot of things that are happening currently in our world. But I'm like, could you imagine? Say it was even 50% of people knew themselves well enough to walk in integrity and kindness in the world. Like that, I mean, yeah, let's go for 100%. But if
Right.
we even went from
First
10%
notch.
to 50%, like it's
Right.
wow.
And I
So you,
think and we talk about it on the calls with the authors. I think that that is part of our purpose. That's why
yeah,
it's worth us
yeah,
doing everything we talked about, not just the hour for the show, but the hours before and after and in
right,
between. I think, I don't think that we've, even with all the impact that we've seen, understand the impact that it's going to have. And it's absolutely necessary because it's not just about, um, gender or things we vote on. It's about the fact that it's actually affecting people's health. We're holding on to
right,
this stuff. We're not processing it. People are
absolutely,
getting sick and we are passing away. And that's where I go
right.
to with the
I
intentional
know,
wellness. So
right.
um better work environments, people getting developed. I'm excited about it.
What
What are you
did
gonna say?
Catherine say? She said authentic. It's what you just stated. You just
Mm,
showed your Enneagram type
mm,
because you were like right there. You're like,
yeah.
oh, and we're gonna pass away.
Yeah. I don't play about it. I do not play about it. 'Cause
So, and it's
We can get
real,
on a soapbox.
right?
Yes, yes, because I
Right?
see
That
that with
real,
that action, I see it leading directly
absolutely
to that. But instead of us being automatically negative, again, I try to go to what could the positive side be? We all deserve
right.
to be well. We deserve to be wise. We're connected anyways. Let's make, the heart math coherent. Let's be connected in wellness, like
Let's
connected in
get
wisdom,
people
like we're doing.
certified in the
Do you
Enneagram.
know what I
Let's get
mean?
more people out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I know we're almost at time,
we
which
are.
is hard to believe. We're about to wrap episode 150.
I know.
But what do we need to shout out or lift up before we go?
So, guys, we are in the middle of the beginning of volume 3. So, if you've heard us talking about the conference and the books and you want to join us, now is your time, okay? If it's not you and you know somebody who would be amazing, who has an amazing resource, a story that
A
they want to
story.
share, let us know. And no
Yep.
pressure. It's not for everybody, but we have room. Again, we love being connected. We love lifting up different types of resources, and we're super excited about yes, volume 2 and everything that we have going on. We still have an audiobook coming and
Yep.
everything that we have coming this year because we're going to continue this work. It's about you being better taken care of, getting connected to the resources that you need, and having that for everybody around you. So that's what I have.
I love it. I love
Yes,
it. We'll put that link in our show notes because we do have a launch for cohort 3 coming up next Wednesday.
next
And we'd
Wednesday.
love for you to join us. Even if you're just curious about what we're up to, come
Yeah,
join us and meet some of our folks.
yeah.
And yeah, I
And
mean,
I have
good
one more
stuff.
thing for them because, just like we're going to continue this conversation with Catherine and have continued it with Lori and the other ladies, you can join the conversations, not only in the
Hmm.
comments for the show, not only in the reviews for the podcast, but in the community. Come join us on LinkedIn. We're intentional about being over there to be connected in business, but we're connected in wellness. We're connected in action in the community. So we have different things that we share about every day. We talk about the podcast and jump in there and see where you fit in, see how we can get you plugged in, and we look forward to more soon.
Mm, yeah,
Yes.
I will
Okay,
put
guys.
that in the comments and in the show notes also.
I
So,
love it. And we'll be here live next week, wrapping up this amazing season, getting ready for season. I think next season is what? Season 18? Season
yes.
18, baby. Yes. Okay, guys. And in the meantime, be well, be wise, be whole. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Peace.